I never meant to snoop through my mother's things. But when I noticed the edge of that cream-colored envelope peeking out from beneath her jewelry box, something made me pause. Maybe it was the way she'd been acting lately. All those hushed phone calls and worried glances at Dad during dinner. Or maybe it was just that sixth sense you get when your whole world is about to shift beneath your feet. My name is Riley, and until that moment, I thought I understood my place in our family. I was the quiet one, the reliable one. The one who didn't need much attention because my sister Savannah took up all the oxygen in every room she entered. The letter trembled in my hands as I read it. A mortgage application. Not just any mortgage. They were planning to take out a second mortgage on our family home. The one Dad had spent 30 years paying off. And there, in my mother's neat handwriting, was the reason. Business investment opportunity for daughter's entrepreneurial venture. Daughter. Singular. Not daughters. I heard the front door open downstairs, followed by my sister's voice floating up. Mom, where are you? I've got the most amazing news about the business plan. Footsteps on the stairs. I scrambled to return the letter exactly as I'd found it, my heart pounding against my ribs. But as I slid it back under the jewelry box, another document caught my eye. A bank statement showing my parents' retirement savings, nearly depleted. Mom? Savannah's voice was closer now. I backed away from the dresser, my mind racing. They were going to risk everything, their home, their retirement, their security, for Savannah's latest scheme. The same sister who'd already burned through her college fund starting and abandoning 3 different business ventures. The bedroom door started to open, and I ducked into the adjoining bathroom. As I pressed myself against the cool tile wall, listening to Savannah's excited chatter about profit margins and market research, one thought crystallized in my mind. I couldn't let them do this. Not this time. Not when I knew what I knew now. The weekly family dinner felt like a minefield tonight. Mom had outdone herself with a pot roast that nobody was really eating. Too caught up in Savannah's animated presentation about her latest business venture. I pushed my carrots around the plate, the letter I'd found earlier burning a hole in my thoughts. So that's why I need to expand now, Savannah was saying, gesturing with her fork. The market research shows huge potential for organic baby clothing, especially with my social media following. Mom beamed. It's wonderful to see you so passionate, sweetheart. Walter, isn't it exciting? Dad nodded without looking up from his plate. The silence that followed felt heavy, like storm clouds gathering. Actually, I cleared my throat. I've been meaning to tell you all something too. I got accepted into that graphic design program I applied for. Oh, that's nice, dear, Mom said, already turning back to Savannah. Now, about the storefront you were looking at. It's a full scholarship. I pressed on, my voice stronger. They only accept 5 students each year. Savannah's fork clattered against her plate. Mom, speaking of the storefront, I'll need to move quickly. There's another buyer interested. How much? The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Excuse me? Savannah's perfectly plucked eyebrows drew together. The storefront. How much do you need? The room went still. Mom's hand tightened around her water glass. That's not really your concern, Riley, Mom said, her tone sharp. Your sister has a solid business plan, and we're handling it as a family. As a family? I laughed, the sound hollow. Is that what we're calling it when you mortgage the house without telling Dad? Dad's head snapped up. Mom's face went pale. Savannah's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I think you're confused. Savannah recovered first, her voice honey-sweet. Mom and Dad are just helping me invest in my future. Maybe if you had shown more initiative over the years. I stood up, so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. Initiative? Like the 3 failed businesses they've already funded for you. Riley, Mom's voice cracked like a whip. That's enough. Go to your room if you can't be supportive of your sister's dreams. I was 22 years old, and my mother had just sent me to my room. The absurdity of it all hit me like a punch to the gut. 3 days after the dinner disaster, I found Savannah crying in her car outside our parents' house. Not the pretty, camera-ready tears she usually deployed when things didn't go her way, but real, ugly sobbing that made her whole body shake. I should have walked away. Instead, I tapped on her window. Go away, she hiccuped, but unlocked the door anyway. The inside of her luxury SUV smelled like desperation and expensive perfume. Crumpled papers covered the passenger seat, bank statements, overdue notices, and a letter from her landlord threatening eviction from her storefront. "It's all falling apart," Savannah whispered, mascara tracking down her cheeks. "The organic supplier doubled their prices, and half my inventory is just sitting there. Nobody wants to pay premium prices for baby clothes during a recession." I picked up one of the statements. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. Way worse. "Does Ethan know?" She shook her head. "He thinks the business is doing great. Everyone does. Mom and Dad." Her voice cracked. "They're so proud of me, Riley. For once in my life, I'm not just the pretty face who married well. I'm the successful daughter. And their house is going to be the collateral for your failure." The words came out sharper than I intended. "You don't understand." She grabbed my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. "I can turn this around. I just need more time, more capital. The mortgage money would help me clear the debts, rebrand, maybe pivot to a different market. Like you did with the yoga studio, or the juice bar, or that ridiculous lifestyle coaching business." Her face hardened. "At least I'm trying something. What are you doing with your life, Riley?" "Living at home, working part-time at a coffee shop. I got a full scholarship to learn how to draw pretty pictures." She laughed, but it sounded desperate. "Please. Mom and Dad need something real to be proud of. And right now, I'm all they've got." I pulled my arm away, feeling the crescents her nails had left in my skin. "You're going to destroy them." "No," she said quietly, her eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. "I'm going to save them from having 2 disappointments for daughters. And you're going to help me by keeping your mouth shut." The mortgage papers arrived on a Tuesday. I watched from the kitchen as Mom spread them across the dining room table, her reading glasses perched on her nose while Dad hovered uncertainly behind her. The scene felt surreal, like watching a slow-motion car crash. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Can you watch the twins tonight? Emergency meeting with our investors." I nearly dropped the phone. Savannah hadn't told him either. "Sure." I typed back, my fingers trembling. "What time?" The twins were already waiting when I arrived, backpacks stuffed with superhero action figures and fruit snacks. Ethan looked stressed, his tie loosened and hair disheveled. "Thanks, Riley. You're a lifesaver," he said, grabbing his briefcase. "Savannah's been so busy with the business lately, I barely see her. But these investor meetings could change everything." I forced a smile. "Everything okay?" "Just some cash flow issues. Normal startup stuff." He checked his watch. "The nanny usually handles evenings, but she called in sick. Savannah's at some marketing event." She wasn't. I'd seen her car at our parents' house less than an hour ago. After Ethan left, I sat on the floor with Caleb and Dylan, building a Lego fortress while my mind raced. Their college funds were probably already gone, funneled into their mother's failing business. Now their grandparents' house was next. "Aunt Riley," Caleb looked up from his blocks, "why is Mommy always crying in her office?" Dylan nodded. "She thinks we're sleeping, but we hear her." My chest tightened. Sometimes grown-ups get scared too." "Is that why Daddy's always mad now?" Dylan whispered. Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Mom. "Mortgage approved. Don't tell your sister yet. We want to surprise her." I stared at the message, then at my nephew's innocent faces. The weight of everyone's secrets pressed down on me like a physical thing. Someone had to stop this before it destroyed our entire family. But as I looked around at the photos on the walls, happy family portraits hiding a house of cards, I realized that speaking up might destroy us just as thoroughly as staying silent. I hadn't planned to confront them that morning. But when I walked into the kitchen and saw Mom writing a check, another check, while Savannah hovered nearby, something inside me snapped. "Don't cash that," I said. Mom barely glanced up. "Riley, this doesn't concern you." "Really?" "Because I think the imminent destruction of our family concerns everyone." I pulled out my phone, hand shaking. Should I call Ethan? Ask him about last night's investor meeting? Savannah's face went white. You wouldn't dare. What investor meeting? Mom looked between us, confusion creasing her forehead. The one that didn't happen, I said, because there are no investors. There's nothing left to invest in, is there, Savannah? Stop it. Savannah's voice cracked. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I saw the eviction notice, the overdue bills, the bounce checks. Mom stood up slowly. What is she talking about, Savannah? She's jealous. Savannah's eyes filled with tears. She's always been jealous. Ever since I started succeeding. Succeeding? I laughed. Your business is hemorrhaging money. The twins hear you crying every night. Ethan's clueless, thinking you're at marketing events while you're here, bleeding Mom and Dad dry. That's enough. Mom slammed her hand on the counter. Riley, how dare you attack your sister like this? After everything she's built. Everything she's built is a lie. Dad appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. For once, he didn't look away. The mortgage papers, he said quietly. Where are they? Walter, please. Mom started, but he cut her off. I want to see them. Now. Savannah moved first, reaching for her oversized purse. But I was closer to where she'd left it. The papers spilled across the floor as we both grabbed for them. Bank statements, bounce checks, and there, at the bottom, a half-completed loan application with forged signatures. Dad's signatures. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's hand covered her mouth. Dad stared at the papers, then at Savannah, then at me. For the first time in my life, I saw real anger in his eyes. But it wasn't directed at Savannah. Riley, he said, his voice trembling, I think you should leave. The motel room smelled like stale cigarettes and broken dreams. 3 days after being kicked out, I was still wearing the same clothes I'd left in, staring at my phone as messages piled up. Most were from Mom, ranging from angry to pleading. A few from Ethan, asking why I wasn't answering Savannah's calls. Nothing from Dad. A knock at the door made me jump. Housekeeping. Not today. I called back, my voice rough from disuse. It's me. Savannah. Of course it was Savannah. She'd probably tracked my credit card. She'd always been good at getting what she wanted. I opened the door just enough to see her perfect makeup, her designer outfit, her concerned expression that looked rehearsed for an audience that wasn't there. You look terrible, she said. What do you want? She pushed past me into the room. To fix this. Mom and Dad are devastated. They think you're having some kind of breakdown. I laughed. Of course they do. Because heaven forbid their golden child be the one with problems. I admitted everything, she said quietly. About the business failing. About the forged signatures. My heart stopped. What? I told them I was desperate. That I made a mistake. She sat on the bed, smoothing her skirt. They've agreed to help me restructure. Start fresh. We can all move past this, Riley. Come home. Move past this. The words felt like glass in my throat. You committed fraud, Savannah. You nearly destroyed our parents financially. And they're just forgiving you. Family forgives. She reached for my hand. Mom suggested we could work together. Your graphic design skills could really help with the rebranding. I jerked away. Are you serious? This isn't about your business anymore. This is about you never facing consequences. Ever. What do you want from me? Her voice cracked. To lose everything? To watch my marriage fall apart? To let my children grow up knowing their mother is a failure? I want the truth to matter. The truth. She stood, suddenly cold. The truth is, you're alone in a cheap motel while I'm going home to our family. Maybe it's time to ask yourself why that is. She left me there, surrounded by peeling wallpaper and the echo of her words, realizing that even when I was right, I was still somehow wrong. The email from Ethan arrived at midnight. Subject line: Need to talk. Attached was a scan of Savannah's latest bank statement, the real one, not the doctored version she'd shown our parents. I called him immediately. She's planning to move back home, he said, his voice hollow. Did you know? How did you find out? She left her laptop open. There were emails to real estate agents about selling our house. Messages to Mom about converting Dad's study into a playroom for the twins.
He paused.
Why didn't you tell me? The guilt hit like a physical blow. Would you have believed me?
Silence.
I'm handling it, he finally said. But Riley, the twins, they need stability. After we hung up, I sat in my motel room, staring at the ceiling until sunrise. Then I drove to my parents' house. Savannah's car was already there. Through the window, I could see her sitting at the kitchen table with Mom, heads bent together over papers. Planning her next escape route, no doubt. The screen door creaked as I entered. They both looked up, Mom's face hardening, Savannah's going carefully blank. What are you doing here? Mom started, but I held up my hand. Ethan knows. Savannah's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. What?
He knows everything.
About the business, the forged documents, your plans to move back here. You had no right. Savannah stood up, so quickly her chair toppled backward. I didn't tell him.
You did.
With your carelessness, your lies, your… Girls, please, Mom interrupted, but we ignored her. You're destroying everything, Savannah hissed. My marriage, my children's stability. No. I stepped closer. You did that. And now you're running away instead of facing it. What would you know about facing anything? You're living in a motel, hiding from reality. Reality? I laughed. Reality is that your husband is meeting with lawyers right now. Reality is that your children cry themselves to sleep because their mother's never home. Reality is that you're about to lose everything, and for once, I'm not going to help you hide from it. The slap echoed through the kitchen. My cheeks stung, but I didn't flinch. Savannah. Mom gasped. But Savannah was already crying, her perfect mask finally cracking. What am I supposed to do? For once in your life, I said quietly, tell the truth. 6 months later, I stood in front of my first gallery showing, surrounded by my digital artwork. Each piece told a story of family secrets, broken trust, and eventual healing. I'd turned our drama into art, and people were actually buying it. This one's my favorite, a familiar voice said behind me. Dad stood there, looking older but somehow lighter, studying a piece that showed 2 sisters as children, their shadows telling a different story than their smiling faces. I wasn't sure you'd come, I said. Your mother's here too. She's pretending to understand modern art by the wine table. We shared a small laugh, the first in what felt like years. Savannah started therapy, he said quietly. She and Ethan are working things out. The twins are adjusting. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Riley, he touched my arm gently. I found something in your old room. When you left. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Inside was a college acceptance letter from 5 years ago, to an art school in New York. Full scholarship. Mom told me I wasn't accepted, I whispered. She thought she was protecting you, keeping you close. We both did. He sighed. We were wrong about a lot of things. Before I could respond, Mom appeared, clutching a glass of wine like a shield. The sunset piece, she said, pointing to my largest work. You used my jewelry box in it. I did. And the letter behind it. She swallowed hard. That's the mortgage application, isn't it? Yes. She nodded slowly. You made something beautiful out of our mistakes. A comfortable silence fell between us, filled with things we weren't ready to say, but finally understood. Across the room, I spotted Savannah slipping in quietly, looking smaller somehow in her simple dress and minimal makeup. She caught my eye but didn't approach, offering a slight nod instead. We weren't ready for more, but maybe that was okay. Some stories don't end with perfect resolution. They end with the possibility of one. I turned back to my parents, these imperfect people who had raised 2 imperfect daughters, and realized that sometimes the truth isn't about revenge or justice. Sometimes it's just about finally seeing things as they are and finding the courage to paint them that way.